At the New Jersey SBDC Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, we have the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. My name is Takoa Bell. I am one of the event coordinators for the NJS BDC at Rutgers-Newark. And on behalf of Dr. Tendai Indoro, our regional director, I would like to welcome you all to our Preparing for PPP Loan Forgiveness webinar. For those of you here that are unfamiliar with the SBDC, it stands for Small Business Development Centers. And here at the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers at Rutgers-Newark, we serve as the premier provider of business training and technical assistance services to establish small businesses, startups, as well as to entrepreneurs. We are one of 12 centers in the NJSBDC network, and we service those in Essex County. Our center is hosted by the Rutgers Business School and is partnership between the Small Business Administration, Rutgers University, and the New Jersey Business Action Center. Our mission here is to help entrepreneurs as well as business owners start and grow sustainable, successful businesses through the delivery of one-on-one business consulting, training, and technical assistance programs. Now, all these services are provided to you at no cost and are paid for by your tax dollars. If you or your business is located in Essex County, our website is www.rnsbdc.com. And on the top right-hand corner of our site, we have a red button labeled Request Counseling. So clicking on that button will lead you to fill out some information about your business or your business idea, including the help you may be seeking. And within 24 to 48 business hours, one of our consultants will reach out to you for a business assessment. And for those of you here this afternoon that may not be within Essex County, our headquarters website is www.njsbdc.com. And on that website, you can type in your county and it will refer you to your local SBDC office. For the benefit of everyone attending today's webinar, we will be taking questions via the Q&A and the chat feature here on Zoom. If you would like to ask your questions at the end via audio, I can go ahead and give you the ability to unmute yourself to ask your questions that way. So please feel free to post your questions and we'll do our best to respond during or at the end of today's webinar. And for those of you here that may be new to our webinars, you will be given a copy of the presentation slides along with a video recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you within 48 to 72 hours so that you can refer to all this information long after the webinar has ended. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you all our presenter for today's webinar, Mary Baker. Mary is the CEO and owner of Baker Tax and Accounting Services, and Mary is also an SBDC consultant here at the NJSBDC at Rutgers-Newark in the areas of taxes, accounting, bookkeeping, and financial management. And now, without further ado, I will pull up today's slides and turn today's webinar over to Mary.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out time today to be with us today with SBDC, Rutgers SBDC. I also want to thank Rutgers SBDC for allowing me to provide this knowledge and service to you today on this webinar. So we are going to talk about today one of the most talked about conversation we had during this COVID pandemic for the businesses. And it's about how to prepare you for PPP loan forgiveness. So I'm hoping each and every one of you that are on this webinar today did receive some type of PPP loan. If you did, that's great. And if you are still in business, that's even greater for each and every one of you. So today, what I'll be doing um, is going through what's going on in the PPP loan forgiveness world and how you can apply for it. My name is Mary Baker. I am the CEO of Baker Tax and Accounting Services. I have been in this industry for over 40 years. So, yes, I am aging myself a little bit, right? But my main focus and service is with business owners, small and mid-sized business owners, helping them make sure that they get the financial knowledge and need to run their business. And because of the pandemic, it has been my mission to make sure that all business owners, small and mid-sized business owners, stay in business or continue to operate their business in a manner that they can survive during this pandemic. Okay. So today what we are talking about is about the protection plan, the PPP, which is payroll protection plan. This plan was established, this loan was, I apologize, this loan was established in 2020 in reference to the CARES Act because of the COVID pandemic. The primary purpose of the PPP loan was to help businesses to retain their staffing, meet their payroll, and also to pay their essential expenses to keep their business running. This loan may be 100% forgiveness. The loan was given up to $10 million. No personal guarantee or collateral was required. No minimum FICO scores, and there was no fee in order to apply for this loan. The loan was we had to apply for this loan from the lenders, the banks and the lenders and programs out there that was offering this loan, third-party lenders and banks. So we all should have had the opportunity. The PPP loan is no longer open. They have closed the loan, and we don't know what will happen in the future. It was a loan. Okay. So the terms of the loan, the original loan, it's a loan for 1% interest rate from your local lender. The payments were deferred for 6 months, and the loan payment is due 2 years from the day you receive the actual funding. Okay. What we're going to dive into today is some of the terms of the loans and how do you qualify to have your loan forgiven. I'll tell you, it's very interesting, and I'll tell you why, if you haven't done it, it is so important that you do this as soon as possible because they are forgiving loans. So it is happening. I actually had one client and I couldn't believe it because I didn't know they was going to forgive that much of a loan, over $300,000 in a loan forgiveness. So the first loan, if you receive the first PPP loan forgiveness, the full loan can be forgiven. The period for that first loan was 8 to 24 weeks covered period for your salary, your payroll, and your expenses. Your employee and compensation level for each employee stayed the same. The loan proceeds were spent 60% on payroll and other eligible expenses that we will get into later on in this webinar. But remember, at least 60% of the proceeds of the loan were to be spent on payroll courses. So that was the first scenario for the first PPP loan forgiveness. Now, the second loan next. The second loan, the conditions were similar with the first loan, right? But another additional thing with the second loan. The loan was full loan forgiveness. It covered the 824 weeks period. But on the second loan, the full forgiveness, if you kept employees and their compensation level at the same when you received the first PPP loan. The loan proceeds were 60% was spent on payroll costs and other eligible operating expenses for the second loan, which is great, which is a great thing. So the next thing we have, how and when to apply for the loan. So a lot of people are saying now, okay, I got the money, I spent the money. When do I apply for the loan forgiveness? So the first loan forgiveness, your lender should have sent you an email and you should have applied for it by now. But if you did not apply for it, don't worry. You still have time to apply for it. You can apply for the loan forgiveness once all the loan dollars are used, right? Or any time up to the maturity date of the loan. And that date should be the date included in your loan papers when you sign the loan. You must apply within 10 months after the last day of your covered period of that loan. Because if you do not apply within that 10 months after the time, after 10 months after the last date of the covered period, your loan will not or may not be eligible for full loan forgiveness. So go back, look at your paperwork, make sure you know the maturity date of your loan, or apply for the loan forgiveness within 10 months of the last day of your covered period, which is 8 to 24 weeks. Please do this as soon as possible because this can disqualify you for full loan forgiveness if you don't apply within the 10 months of it. Okay. So one of the good things we have going on now, from the first loan to the second loan, they have made it, the SBA has made it easier for us to apply for the loan forgiveness. During the first loan, we were a little confused. We didn't know what to do. The lenders did not know exactly what SBA was requiring for the loan forgiveness. And on the first loan, during the first time, we could only apply for the loan forgiveness through the lender direct. Now, which is great, and I think is awesome, we have two ways that we can apply for the loan forgiveness. The SBA has made it as simple as possible for us to apply for the loan forgiveness because they want to make sure that each and every one of us apply for the loan forgiveness. So now you can apply directly through your lender. Your lender would have sent you or will send you an email for how you can apply directly through their website or third-party website. You could do it that way. Or if your lender does not have a direct link to loan forgiveness, you can apply for it through SBA. To be honest with you personally, SBA has created a website, and we have the website listed there on their website that you can apply for the loan forgiveness for your first loan if you have not done that as of yet, and for your second loan. Through the SBA website, it does have a list of the lenders that qualify to apply directly through the SBA website. You can download that list through SBA and see if your bank is in that list. And through the SBA website, it would only take you about 10 minutes to complete the loan forgiveness. Apply for the loan forgiveness for the PPP loan. As long as you have all your information, and I suggest before you do it for either your lender directly or through SBA website, that you have all of your additional information that you would need when you're applying for these loan forgiveness. And I will give you a list of some of those items that you would need when you are completing this information. So you can do it two ways now. For the first and the second loan, you can do it directly through your lender directly website. They would have sent you an email, or you could do it directly through SBA website, which is great. It only takes you about 10 minutes. You do the first one if you haven't done it for your first one, and then you could do it for the second loan as well. So my suggestion is that each and every one of you should be doing this now and applying for this immediately so that you can give the forgiveness, because we don't know what may happen later. So one of the things I like to cover in here, because of the COVID and because of PPP, it has set us to be more mindful of keeping records of our expenses, right? And what do we spend our business expenses on, right? The PPP, one of the things that they have agreed as time went on is that the PPP loan is not taxable. So those dollars you do not have to include as income on your business tax return. And the PPP expenses are deductible. So the government decided, at first they wasn't sure, they went back and forth with this. They has decided that the expenses that we applied in our business during the COVID period, they are deductible. So just keep in mind the PPP loan proceeds are not taxable, and the expenses we can deduct on our business tax return. So some of the expenses I'm hoping that each and every one of you have been keeping record of, and we're going to go over this in a little bit more detail, is what you should have been spending your PPP expenses on. Another thing that I had recommend that you do, if you have not already done this, is that I suggested that the proceeds from your PPP loan should have been placed in a separate business account than your normal business account, because this way you would have a better record of the proceeds you received from the loan and the expenses you paid from the loan, right? So you should have been taking your current expenses and using the loan proceeds to pay your current expenses. Some of the expenses that you should have been paying for from the PPP proceeds is your payroll costs, which was 60% of the loan proceeds. Any healthcare benefits for your employees and yourself, your rent or lease or mortgage on your business location, your insurance premium on your business insurance, your mortgage interest if you own the building that your business is located in, your utilities for the business, any business debt interest that you had to pay out, and any other expenses. If you unsure of what expenses that you can use the loan proceeds for, you can check with your lender and they will give you a more detailed record of what expenses you should have used to process your loans. Okay. So let's dive into some of the normal payroll expenses. This is what I always get some pushback on. People do not have a clear explanation on what they should have. And these are things that right now the SBA is not asking for, but my suggestion is to make sure you have these records and keep them handy for your proof of where you spent that loan proceeds, PPP loan money from. My suggestion, if it's paper, you can scan this information in, but you want to keep this separate. You want to make sure that you know, I apologize, where these loan proceeds are from. So some of the additional non-payroll expenses. So of course, payroll, you would have to write that off. So your payroll would be your wages, your W-2 employees, and your 1099 contractors. Um, you want to keep a record of that. You have payroll records and your 1099 contractors. You should have if you paid them by check, cash, canceled checks, or paying them directly, right? You want to make sure when you're paying each and every one, you want to make sure that you have some type of paper trail. My recommendation is not to pay by cash, because if you pay by cash, you don't have any proof of showing that you paid a person, right? On the payroll. So non-payroll expenses, as I said before, is your business mortgage interest payment. You can use copies of your lender amortization schedule, which you receive when you um, did the loan or created the loan. You can have your receipts, verifying payments, canceled checks, bank statements showing payments directly from your bank account. Or you can use your lender's account statement. And that is statements that the lender sends you each month, showing that you pay your mortgage payment for your business. So that is something that you can use and you want to keep handy and put that aside to make sure that is showing that. So you want to definitely make sure you show your business mortgage interest payment. If you do not own the business, the building or location where your business is located, you want to make sure you keep the business rent or lease payment. This is copies of current lease agreements and receipts of you making your monthly payment, rent payment on your business, or canceled checks that are verifying that you made payments on your business rent or lease payments. So you want to keep copies of that. If it's too much paperwork, you can also scan this information in. That is also acceptable from the government officials. For your business utility payments, you want to keep copies of your invoices and receipts and copies of canceled checks or account statements. You want to make sure that you have these, your canceled checks. One of the things I recommend as business owners is when you on your business account, nowadays the banks may charge you an extra $5 or $2.50 to get each month a copy of your business canceled checks. I recommend that you do pay that extra $5. And the reason why I always recommend this is because if you were to ever get audited by the IRS or the state of New Jersey on your business and you make payments by checks, they want to see copies of canceled checks front and back. And if you don't have this, and then when you go into the banks actually charge you a fee for each copy of a canceled check back and front and back. Some banks charge you $5 or $2 for each check that you would like a copy of the canceled check back and front. As a business owner, my recommendation is to pay that extra fee each month, and then that way you always will have a copy of the canceled check front and back, showing that you paid it and showing that the check has been canceled, because the government, the IRS, and the state wants to see the front and back. You can write out a check. They want to see proof that the check has been cashed. So it's great to always, with your bank statement, ask for a copy of the canceled checks. Another thing that you need for non-payroll expenses to cover your PPP is any operating expenses, copies of invoices, purchase orders paid, You can use receipts. You can use canceled checks. You can use account statements verifying that you made the payments. You want to make sure you keep those invoices. You want to make sure you keep the purchase orders or the order statements, whether you get it virtual or not. My recommendation is download those e-statements if that's how they send them to you, and keep them in a folder so that you'll have them and so that they're matched with your canceled checks. Another thing that you can include for non-employee expenses for your PPP proceeds is covered property damage costs. You also will need a copy of the invoice, the purchase order, canceled check, or account statement. And you also would need verification that the courses are related to uninsured property damage, right? Due to vandalism or looting or anything like that that occurred in 2020. So this is great to know, because a lot of times when we, as business owners, if we have vandalism or looting, we tend to forget to write this off on our taxes as well. And so these are covered expenses that you can write off, not only for your PPP loan proceeds, but also on your tax return as well. So you want to always keep that. And most of these covers, if it's insurance, and whatever part that the insurance doesn't cover, you can write that off in your business expenses. And you can also apply this towards your PPP expenses. Okay. The next thing is supplier costs. So if you have a supplier, if you have cost of goods sold or any of that, you can always write that off as well. If you sell items, products, or service, you want to make sure you always have a copy of a contract from your suppliers, the purchase order, right? And the time, right? And the time order and the time before the covered period, except for perishable goods. So you want a copy of the invoice, the purchase order paid, the receipts, the canceled check. And you also want to make sure that the date is on these contracts or order, because that is so important. They want to make sure that it was purchased during the covered period. Another thing that you can use your PPP for, and I don't know if a lot of people have done this, is for PPE protection items for your employee. If you had to buy sanitizer, if you had to sanitize the office, if you have to buy protective uniforms for your staff and yourself, as long as these items had complied with the COVID-19 guidance, you could also write that off as well with your PPP proceeds. So just make sure you have the invoices, the purchase order paid, the receipts, the canceled check, the account statements, and verify that the item that you purchased for PPE comply with COVID-19 guidelines. So you want to make sure that you have all of these items and that all of these items are definitely included. Make sure you keep a copy of all the canceled checks. As I said before, you probably want to get that from your bank each month and just keep it just for future reference as well. This list of the non-payroll expenses does not include everything. Anything that you use during that 8 to 24 weeks that you use the PPP loan proceeds for can be included in this list, and just make sure that you have a detailed list of each and every one of these items. Thank you. The next thing we're going to cover is the different forms that needs to be completed to apply for the PPP loan forgiveness. There are 3 forms, the SBA forms, and they are on your Lender Direct website and also SBA website. There are 3 forms that you may be eligible for. You just have to check the guidelines. So the form 3508 is the longer form, and that would be for borrowers who do not qualify to use the easy form and the S form. So if you don't qualify for the easy form and the S form, you would have to complete the 3508 form, which is the longer form to complete. The form 3508 EZ, that form can be used by borrowers who are self-employed, no employees, or borrowers, if you didn't reduce your employee's salary by more than 25%, if you did not reduce your employees' hours, you have the same employees, their salary stayed the same, or borrowers who business activity due to COVID did not reduce because of COVID guidelines did not reduce, you can use the 3508 easy forms. You can use that form if you're self-employed and you did not reduce any of your employees' hours or salary, you can use form 3508 EZ. Form 3508S is the easiest form, and that's for borrowers who took out loans of $50,000 or less. They do not require additional documentation to show calculation. You just complete the answers and you complete that form. But because they do not require you for additional documentation when you're applying for the loan forgiveness, it does not mean they may not come back and ask for it later. So even though you complete this form, you didn't provide documentation at the time of completing the loan forgiveness form for the 3508S, you still need to keep those forms handy just in case they do come back and ask for it. And I do believe, and this is just my opinion, that once everything has settled, they will be coming back and auditing some people just to make sure that we are using this funding, or we have used this funding in a proper way. So I would definitely say make sure you keep records of all your documentation, because I do believe that they will come back and will be asking for this information at a later date. If the state is not, I don't know if the IRS will, but we just want to make sure that we have all of this information for future reference. Okay. So some of the items that we will need when applying for PPP loan forgiveness. So now when you're sitting down and you're getting ready to complete the loan forgiveness application, whether you're doing it through your lender direct or SBA website direct, these are some of the items that you would need that they're going to ask you when you are completing this. So you want to make sure that you do have all of these items when you're applying for your PPP loan forgiveness. You want to make sure you have your business TIN number, or you want to if you don't have a business TIN number, if you use the Social Security, whatever number you use when you apply for the loan, that is the number that you want to have. You also want to know what your loan number was, what the first loan number, if you haven't applied, and the second for the second. You also want to know the loan amount, what you received, whether on the first loan and the second amount. You want to know the date that the loan proceeds was distributed to your bank account. You want to know that as well. If you have employees at the time of the loan application, you want to make sure you have how many employees you had at the time when you applied for it, and you want to know how many employees you had at the time when you were asking for the forgiveness. These numbers are very important. We may not think they are, but they are very important because this is what they determine how much of the loan can be forgiven. So it's very important that we have these correct numbers, and definitely have the right numbers when we're doing this, because of course they will know if we're running payroll, and this payroll employer taxes are going through the state, so they kind of know like what employees we had at the time of the loan application, and then they would know how many employees we had at the time of forgiveness. So just make sure you have these numbers. They also want to know how much EIDL advance money you had, amount you received. And they also want to know, this is usually for the first loan, how much EIDL, what was your EIDL application number? This information you should be able to get when you sign your documents to receive all of these fundings. You should be able to have that information and keep that information handy. They also want to know your payroll schedule and your payroll covered period. My recommendation is that you take the full period of 24 weeks as opposed to 8 weeks. Most people say, but hey, how about if I used all the money within the 8 weeks? That's fine. That's great. That's okay as well. But to cover yourself, to make sure that you have enough expenses to cover within that loan period, my recommendation is to go for the 24 weeks. That way you're covering the entire period, and the loan forgiveness can be given for the full dollar amount. It is so important because if you choose 8 weeks and you didn't use all the money in the 8 weeks, then will they give you the entire forgiveness? So my suggestion is to say you want the 4-week cover period, even if you use it before the 24 weeks period. Okay. This is really interesting to me, is the forgiveness amount. Like I said, I was really surprised at one of my clients, to be honest, that they actually had forgiving the entire $300,000 amount. So for the forgiveness amount, my recommendation is that you include the entire amount, 100% amount, and then they will decide whether they're going to give you less than 100% of the forgiveness or all of it. So far, I have not encountered anyone, small or mid-sized businesses, where they did not award them the full 100% forgiveness amount. Make sure you have your total payroll cost, what it costs you to run payroll. You want to make sure you have that. They do ask that on the first one. Your mortgage, your business interest payments, you want to have that, and your business rent and your business utility. The more expenses you can show and you can prove that you use the loan proceeds for, the more forgiveness they will give it to you for. And so I say to you, make sure you do this, and take the time to put these numbers together, or take the time to have your accountants put these numbers together, because they may seem minimum to us, but they will make a big difference in whether or not they would give you 100% loan forgiveness. So you want to make sure you have all these numbers. is so important. And so I just want to go back real quick and just go over if you didn't have it. You want to make sure when you're sitting down to do this loan forgiveness, you have your business ID number, you have your SBA PPP loan number, you have your PPP loan amount, and your PPP loan disbursement date. You want it for the first one if you haven't completed your first loan forgiveness, and you want it for the second one as well. You want to make sure you have your employees at the time you apply for the loan, and you want to know the employees at the time asking for the forgiveness application. You also want to know your EIDL advance amount. You want to know your EIDL application number. You should be able to get this information on the paperwork that you sign. You want to know your payroll schedule, your payroll cover period, which I suggest doing 24 weeks, even though you used it in 8 weeks period. You want to make sure you ask for 100% loan forgiveness and let them tell you how much they will forgive if it's not 100%. You want to make sure you include your payroll costs, your mortgage interest payments, your business rent, your utility, and any of the other expenses that we discussed earlier, your PPP information, and any other operating expenses that you have. You want to make sure that you have all of that and put all of those dollar amounts in for the loan forgiveness for their calculation. Thank you. Okay. So now what we're going to get into is some of the record keeping for PPP. Now that we have PPP, right? It kind of forced us during COVID to think about how do we keep record keeping for our business, right? So going forward and using the PPP, these are some of the record keeping ideals, suggestions that we have that if they do ever come back and audit you, you will have this information in one place. You'll be able to present to them the detail and you will have all your backup. One of the things that we had suggested in the beginning of this COVID and the PPP loan, the first loan, the second loan, was to open up a separate business bank account other than your normal operating account to put the loan proceeds in there. We recommended that. You also wanted to open up, we recommend to keep a separate payroll withdrawal account from the PPP that the payroll was coming out, so that if you ever got ordered or SBA wants you to show proof, it's not commingling with your old regular business account that you had income coming in from sales that you sold. You wanted to keep that totally separate. Now that we know that the expenses can still be written off for this, you can always have your accountant go back and say, okay, this is what came out of my regular account, this is what came out the PPP account. But you wanted to keep two separate accounts just in case you get audited or they come back, you can just give them that one account, because it's going to get really confusing if you put everything into that one account that you normally was operating out of, right? The cover period for the forgiveness was 8 weeks versus 24 weeks. I recommended 24 weeks, even if you use the funds within 8 weeks. And the reason for that, because if you had some funds left over from the loan proceeds, you would have spent it more in the 24 weeks as opposed to the 8 weeks. So you want to make sure your payroll was 24 weeks. You wanted to make sure everything, because hey, what about if your course was more than actually what the loan amount was for? This makes you more of a candidate to get 100% loan forgiveness, right? You want to make sure if you have a third party, get the reports. The third parties like Paychecks, ADP, Prime Point, these payroll company has reports set up now specifically. So when you go in and ask for them, they know what it is. They know for the covered period. You can just print those reports or you can download those reports. And those are the reports you would use to show as proof for PPP or proof to get your numbers to apply for the loan forgiveness. Okay. Also, these payroll reports can verify the number of employees you had on payroll at the time you applied for the application, and the number of employees you had when you were applying for the forgiveness. It'll also give the dollar amount. It'll also show if you reduce the rate or you increase the rate. During this 24 weeks period for loan forgiveness. Also, the payroll reports will show your payroll tax filing, what was your expenses when you paid your state income taxes, your payroll taxes, and your unemployment taxes. These taxes also is included as loan forgiveness. So with the payroll report, you should be able to have this information. And if asked for it, you will have that information ready and handy for SBA. Okay. The next one. Also, what you need for record keeping for the PPP is documents. So if you paid employee benefits, if you paid employees' health benefits, things like that, we went over this previously. You want to make sure you have documents, invoices, canceled checks, as we went over before, showing that you paid for employee benefits. As before, we talked about the mortgage, business mortgage payments. You want to make sure you have that, amortization table, lender's account. You want to make sure you have records of rent payment or current lease agreements. You also want to make sure you have records of, as we said before, payments of other PPP approved expenses, receipts, invoices, and ACH drafts. Remember, I said if it's electronically, you want to make sure you download that information and save it in a file on your desktop. You also want to make sure you pay any interest you pay on any debt obligation. This is very important. Before February 2020, you want to make sure these debt obligations that you created this debt before February 15, 2020. Another thing you want to keep in mind, if you have employees and you are submitting the reports, and some of the people say, hey, well, what happens if I had some employees that quit, or I had to fire some, because a lot of us are having the problem of finding employees, or a lot of the employees voluntarily resign, or we fired them, or some of the employees, because children were out of school, they had to go on reduced hours. You want to make sure you have copies, even if you say someone quit or reduced hours, you want to make sure you have copies of job offers or things that you put out there to look for new employees to replace the employees you fired or resigned or reduced the hours, or copies of if people you try to hire and they refuse, you want to have some type of paper trail. You want to have copies of any employees that you fired during this 8 to 24 weeks period and give an explanation why you fired them for whatever cause or reason you had to let them go. You want to make sure you keep records of that. If you had any employees, which some of us have had that problem, that voluntarily resigned because they had to stay home with their children who were out of school, that was schooling at home. Um, I hope each and every one of you are going forward for future reference as well. You get some type of written letter or something in writing saying that they voluntarily resign, or if they ask for a reduction in their work hours. They was working 40 and they can't do 40, they needed 30. And the reason why is because they didn't have anyone to watch their children during this period. You also want to have that in writing. And the reason why you want to have that in writing is because the SBA want to make sure that you didn't receive the funding and then to benefit you personally as opposed to the business, you fire some employees or you let them go. So the main purpose was for the PPP, remember, was to protect you and to help you with your payroll. And so they want to make sure that you comply with that, you were able to keep your staff on board, um, and that you just comply with it. So these are some of the things that you needed to keep in writing. I think going forward, you should always keep these things. This has helped us as business owners to be more aware of our expenses. It helped us, a lot of us, to understand record keeping and to keep better record keeping of what's going on in our business, right? And so these are some of the things that we need to consider in applying for this loan forgiveness. Like I said, if you have not applied for loan forgiveness, you need to do that as soon as possible if you have all your numbers. You want to make sure you have all of your numbers. You could do it through your lender. You could do lender direct. Remember, you could do, your lender should have sent you a email to apply for the loan forgiveness. If not, you can call the lender and confirm it. Or if your lender say, you could go on the SBA website. We did have where you can go. If not, we'll get that information to you. And you could go directly to the SBA debt forgiveness website and ask for the loan forgiveness for both. But when you do this, I just want to make sure that you have all the proper documents in front of you. And when you do this, make sure you know your numbers are certain, your dates, your loan distribution. And my recommendation is to ask for 100% loan forgiveness. You never know, they may do it 100% because your expenses may be more than what the loan was for. So it's so important that you cover all of this and make sure you can do this and apply for this. They have made it much easier than when we applied for the first loan forgiveness. The second loan forgiveness is much easy. And on the SBA website, it only takes you about 10 minutes. You create an account, you go in there and you click on some numbers, you have your documents in front of you, and then you're done. And then what will happen, and I forgot to, it would take them, they haven't given us a time span on how long it would take them to respond to the forgiveness. But the first time, it just took them like a couple of weeks to say if your loan was forgiven or not. So far, I have not, as far as small and mid-sized businesses, have not seen them deny the 100% forgiveness. So I hope each and every one of you can do this. And if you have any questions or any problems getting through this, SBDC, we are here to help you and make sure that you get 100% loan forgiveness. So I am finished with my webinar, but we are open for questions. Are you ready for PPP loan forgiveness? And so we leave this time for you to ask any specific questions that you may have. And if I can answer them, I will. If not, we will get an answer for you and get that answer back to you. So thank you. It has been a pleasure. And we are now open for questions. Okay. So we do have one question. Okay. So I have this for Brian. Your CEO is an LLC. Okay. And all are contractors. How do I prove disbursement was for? So for that one, if they're 1099s and they're contractors, as I said before, I hope you are paying them with a check or some type of paper trail to show that you are paying them, and that will be your proof um, for you is that you paid this person. And if it's the same contractors over and over, that will be a trail. One of the things I do recommend to most business owners, and this is because I do a lot of audits, IRS audits and state audits, when you're writing out checks, and you know how on the check on the left-hand bottom corner they have memo, it is so important that you put what that check is for or what you are paying with that check, because they do look at that, and it would be great if you could do that. Okay. So yes, if you paid them by check, it would be great if you did that. And then that would be your proof. So now, okay. I hope that answers. So the next question, if my business is in my home, can I use these mortgage interest payment? Now, this is tricky. This is very, very tricky on this, because you have to make sure that a percentage of when you're allocating, if it's home, do you have a specific space that you are using for your home to run your business? So the IRS rule is that if you have a home-based business, you have to have a specific space in your home dedicated to run your business. So you can't say my business is run in my kitchen, because you use your kitchen for your personal use as well. You have to have a specific room. And if you have a specific room in your house, it is the percentage of your room of that house, which you could take the square footage of your house, right? And divided by that room will give you the percentage. And that percentage of your mortgage interest you can use as payment. So you have to be very detailed with that, because they do have a rule for that. Anyone else? So will you need to report, Chris, will you need to report the EIDL target advance and the increased loan advance on our second forgiveness? If you have done that on the first one and you only received the first one, then it's already included. But if you have it on the second one, it depends on which form you fill out. When you do the S form, it's simple. They don't ask for that. But if you do the longer one, they do ask for that. And if they ask you for that, then you need to include the increased loan amount. I'm quite sure they have a reason and a formula in determining the forgiveness amount they want to give to you. So make sure you have that And if they ask for that, you definitely want to include that because they do know. Remember now, they all are states, so they have that information. Okay. So I hope that answered your question, Chris. After the 60% used for payroll, is there a certain percentage or cap on the amount that can be used for utility? Now, depending on what you have, is not a percentage, a cap on what you could use for any operating expenses. But if you're depending on the type of business it is, and if you're running a lot of electrical, right, or water or heating or whatever, and if it's 40% of the utilities, then that's what it is. So yeah. So you want to put that and you can prove that 40% of it was used for utilities, then yes, you can put that amount. There isn't any cap. The only cap they really want is to make sure you have minimum 60% used for payroll. Anything else, you there's really not a cap because all of us are in different types of business. So you may run a business where you're running electrical, right? And it may utilities may be 40% of your business. So yes, so there isn't a cap on how much you can use for utilities. Okay, we did not. Okay, Chris, you're saying we did not on the first one using the S form. So I'm not sure what you're saying, Chris. You said we did not on the first one. Oh, okay. You did not include the EIDL target on your first forgiveness. Is that correct, Chris? If that is correct, you're using the S form, then you need to include it the full amount on the second form. If they ask you for that, yes, you do. Because you did not report it on the first one, so you would need to if they ask to report that amount, because that's how they determine, Chris, on how much forgiveness you are entitled to. And you want to be upfront with them and let them know. So, yes. Any more? Okay. Any more open questions that you may have? We don't have any. Okay, yep, you don't have. Okay. So my suggestion is making sure when you do this that you have all this on there. So Brian, we would have to your consultation. They would give you my SBA would give you my contact information, and if you go through them and request that you have you want to know more about how to prep for loan forgiveness, you could go through Rutgers SBDC and it will be free of charge. So if you want to do that, you can. If you're not sure how to complete it or some things like that, you can go through SBDC website and Rutgers, contact them in the contact information, and they will connect you with me, and we will see how we can service you for your loan forgiveness. Okay. Is there any more questions? Have you applied for the first loan and you have received it, or any of you having any problems in not being forgive for the first loan? Or has everybody been successful in getting 100%? Because it's so important of how you fill this document in. I ask that you please take your time when you're completing these loan forgiveness, because the numbers that you put in there makes a big difference if you get 100% loan forgiveness or not. So it's very important how you complete these forms. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, hold on. Okay, so good. I'm in Union County as well. And so the first loan, so what you can do If you haven't applied for the first loan forgiveness, if you want to do it through your lender direct, you can, or you can do it. We can, if you want to schedule an appointment through SBDC, you could do that, or you could do it directly through the SBA website and apply for the first one and the second one. First, you go in and then you do the first one and submit that, and then you go in and do the second one. But I suggest that you do it because if you go over that 10-month period, that can disqualify you for full loan forgiveness. So you want to, each and every one, you want to take your time out to do that as soon as possible. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, yep. Okay. Any additional questions that you may have? Remember, the the PPP loan is not taxable, and the expenses, they have decided that we can write off our normal business expenses, which is a good thing for that.
Okay, so if we don't have any questions, if you have a few questions, we do have like 21 minutes left, so feel free to ask it before we go ahead and end today's webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if we have no more questions, I want to say thank you to Mary for that informative presentation and for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank
So,
you.
so I would like to direct everyone to the chat here. I'll be posting some information, including the direct link to go ahead and apply for that PPP loan forgiveness, as well as 2 of the webinars that the SBA is hosting this week. So let me just go ahead and post that there.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and post the webinars first. So they have one that's actually tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. and the link for that is there, as well as September 2nd at 2:30 p.m. as well. So there you should be seeing the 2 webinars as well. So the webinar is called SBA Paycheck Protection Program, Direct Forgiveness Training for PPP loans, 1,500,000 or less, $150,000 or less. One's on August, tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. and the other one's September 2nd, 2:30 p.m. So if this is of interest of you, please register for that. It's a free webinar, so it's nothing you don't have to pay for anything out of pocket or anything like that. It's more so just providing some information for you and for the PPP loan forgiveness. Okay, and I will also be posting some of our upcoming webinars and workshops. So there you should see the direct link to go ahead and request business counseling, as well as the link there to visit our Eventbrite page and view all of our training that we have at our center.
Yes.
So if you're interested in that, feel free to click on those links and you'll definitely find a webinar or workshop that best fits your business needs. And again, if you're located within Essex County and you're looking to have that one-on-one business consultation with Mary, please feel free to either click on the raise hand button here on Zoom. You should click on that button and I'll take note of your name and go ahead and create that appointment with you and Mary. Or you can visit our website, www.rnsbdc.com, to do that. Again, we do offer our one-on-one consultations with those that are within Essex County. And if you're not in Essex County, you can visit our headquarters website, njsbdc.com. And you can type in your county and it will refer you to your local SBDC office that will be able to help you out any further. And the webinars and workshops that I posted in the chat right there, those are only a few of the ones that we're hosting this year. We're hosting many other topics and webinars such as financing, access to capital, marketing, e-commerce, credit counseling. We have cybersecurity, state certifications, government contracting, human resourcing, and so much more. So again, you can visit our website to register and sign up for these webinars and workshops. And you would definitely find one that best fits your business needs. I do want to remind you all that you will be receiving a video replay as well as the presentation slides within 48 to 72 hours so that you can have all this information to look at and you can apply the strategies and techniques for your business and to also apply for PPP loan forgiveness. After this webinar has ended, in the browser, you will see a survey pop up. Now that survey will help us to adjust our presentations in the future, as well as give us some information on the type of assistance you may be needing for your business or for your business idea. So if you have any time to complete that, it should only take a minute or two. Your feedback is very much appreciated. And on that note, we will now go ahead and end this webinar. I want to say thank you to our presenter, Mary, again, for sharing your expertise with us. And thank you so much to our attendees for taking the time out to attend our webinar and ask your questions and participate. And we look forward to seeing you all at our future webinars and workshops. Have a great day, everyone.